Willow, would you give it up for my friends Justin and Patrick?
Morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I love that song.
So,
Great.
I'm really excited for you to hear their story. And like I do typically when we have interviews, I'll be on Twitter, so I'm not like texting my family or anything. I'm just scrolling through. If you have a question, tweet at me at Steve Ryan Carter. If I use your question, you will get this book, which is absolutely fantastic. But I want to dive right in. What's amazing about these two guys is you're only 2 days apart in age. You've known each other your whole life. Who's older?
I am. 42 years we've known each other.
42. And there's like a family connection, too, that you've kind of discovered.
Yeah. So Patrick and I, we're born just over 36 hours apart. Same hospital, same small town in Eastern Oregon. There hasn't been a day where we haven't known each other. So we're very blessed. And then our mothers have known each other since the 4th grade. Our collective parents have known each other since college. And then when we were writing the book, we found out my great-uncle, it's going to get weird on you, my great-uncle was best man in Patrick's grandfather's wedding. He can't get rid of me.
I've done some research. I found some photos of you as a little, which one are you on? You're on the left?
I'm wearing the tablecloth converted into clothes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
Eastern Oregon, baby.
Yeah.
That's the fashion.
And I'm on the far right. There's a family friend in the middle. I'm on the far right, yeah.
And growing up through high school, you guys were always at each other's houses. I've got this picture that I saw of you two, graduation.
High school. There you go.
But Justin, let's jump right in. And I mean, obviously, you weren't always in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
When did you begin to realize something wasn't okay?
Yeah, so just shy of my 16th birthday, I was driving in a car with a friend of mine going down the freeway, and he ended up rolling his truck going about 80 miles an hour. And I actually walked away from the accident, completely shaken up. But about 6 months later, I started noticing weakness in my left foot. I was playing soccer and running down the soccer field. And my left foot was just flopping around and wasn't working the way that it should. And so brought it to my parents' attention and went to go see a doctor naturally, and he's like, the doctor was stumped and said, I think you might need to go see a neurologist. And I'm going to skip ahead a few years, but I was later diagnosed with a very rare progressive neuromuscular disease. It's called multifocal acquired motor axonopathy. Yes, and it's a mouthful for sure. It was triggered by that car accident I was in. I didn't know you could have a dormant disease in your body, and the car accident triggered it. And to give people a little bit of perspective, it's very similar to ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and it just gets worse over time. And my autoimmune system attacks my nervous system, and then my nervous system shuts down. So eventually, it will more than likely take my life. But I'm here now, air in my lungs, sunny day outside, I'll take it. Yeah.
You know, you're 16, and I know both of you were in the same youth group, went to church together, and you're discovering this disease is within you and the ramifications of it. How did you process this in regards to your faith? At 16, early 20s, both of you, how did you engage this?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
It's kind of weird to say, but it was easy to deal with in some regards, just because Justin's such a positive guy, and his attitude was just one that it's like, okay, this is a new norm. Let's roll with it. That's it. But we didn't know at the time, for 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, that it was going to affect his entire body. So there was just a different landscape ahead of us that we just didn't have an appreciation for. Yeah. But in 2010, when the disease attacked his upper body, that's when it was just a different game. And Justin's a graphic designer by trade, and when that happened, and as he lost the use of his hands, that's when it really sunk in that this is such an unknown future. And so it affected my faith in a pretty negative way initially, because I just became so angry at God because he had failed my friend, is how I saw it, and I prayed for miracles. I prayed day in and day out for something to happen, and the answer did not come. But 2 years later, 2012, Justin's up in Idaho visiting, and now he's in this power wheelchair, and it's just, I'm still angry, still bitter. Where's the miracle? But a gentleman asked Justin if you could have your hands and feet back, would you choose it? And I was doing what a good friend would do. I was eavesdropping on the conversation. So I was really curious what his answer was going to be, and he said, no, I wouldn't choose it. And I'm thinking in my head, that's the wrong answer. But there was like a switch where there's a new paradigm for me to think about the situation. I was praying for a miracle that he wasn't looking for. I was fighting a battle he wasn't fighting. I was praying for, I was praying for healing. And the reality is, the healing had already happened because he was facing an unknown future with dignity and grace. And that is a miracle. Yeah. All he wanted were hands and feet, from me. And that's a privilege. That's a gift that I get to give to him every day.
Gosh, it's a powerful line that you just said right there. I was fighting kind of with God for something that he really was okay with.
Yeah.
And I just, even just hearing that, go, man, that is a nugget of truth, Where did you get that strength from?
We were both very fortunate. We were raised in Christian homes, and I think from an early age, my parents instilled in me that Christ is a cornerstone that you can lean on, and I think just knowing that, God's got me on this path for a reason, and I've dealt with some very, very hard things as well. Obviously my physical journey, but just I was in a dark hole for a long time, and I had never leaned on my Christian faith so much in my entire life, and I still do. Yeah. It's not like just a one-time thing. It's continual. But I know that I have a wife who loves me. I'm married, and then I have kids who love me. Pat is right there, right next to me, living life with me, and it's when you have people that surround you that just want to pick you up and carry you, then it's just, you see a different way of looking through life. Yeah. And it's made me cherish life, and to not wait to live, and to do it with my friends, and to do it with, with you all today. So how cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah. To not wait to live. And you have just so embodied that. Both of you are married. You both have 3 kids. You've been married 20 years. You've been married 17 years. Yeah. And Patrick kind of alluded to it. You were a graphic artist and designer. Yeah. And I was on Society 6, and I kind of looked up your name and came across some of your artwork. It's incredible, like the talent that you had. And have. I love, there's a few of them. You're going to see shoes, and then this one of like the solar system, and just really clean, beautiful art. And we'll jump back to that in a moment. But as you moved into the wheelchair, the powered wheelchair, one day you were watching PBS, yeah. Rick Steves,
yeah.
Who was doing a tour of Spain. And you had this prompting come over you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a nondescript Saturday morning. I was just minding my own business, and it's kind of one of those moments in your life that just it just hit me really, really hard. I wasn't expecting it as well, but watching Rick Steves from Rick Steves Europe, if anybody's familiar with who he is, he's like the nerdiest travel guy in the world. I love him. Sorry, Rick, if you're watching this. But it was on northern Spain, Pamplona, running of the bulls, and this pilgrimage across northern Spain called the Camino de Santiago. And it's 500 miles, and I just knew right then and there it was something that I needed to do. And I knew in my heart, my soul, and my mind, every fiber of my being was telling me, you need to go do this, go do this. And I was scared out of my mind, but Pat came down to visit me, and I was living in San Diego at the time. Now we live in Idaho, but in San Diego, and I showed him this episode, and I remember it very clearly. He's sitting right, like off to my right, just how he is right now, And I said, do you want to go across 500 miles of northern Spain with me? And he said, I'll push you. That's what he said. So I have no idea what we're getting ourselves into, by the way. Complete naive. Yeah.
Right, because it feels like the nice thing a friend would say. Did you not clearly think this is 500 miles? And I love, though, that your first response was, I'll push you, which became the name of the book. It's the name of the website. I mean, that phrase just took on a life of its own. But once you began to realize what it was going to take to do this, how long from the day that you're sitting in San Diego watching Rick Steves to actually traveling over to Spain to do it?
Yeah, so that was in 2012 when Justin had this crazy idea. He's the kind of friend that when he says, I got an idea, you're kind of like, okay, what is it this time? But
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. We actually pulled the trigger as far as on, okay, here we go. Let's get this done in the spring of 2013. So I trained for a year. I knew that this is going to be so far beyond anything I'd ever attempted to do physically. And so for 9 months straight, I was in the gym, twice a day, 6 days a week, without fail. I was either on my bike riding, just to get my body as conditioned as possible, because I knew there's going to be a lot of endurance I needed, right? Just stamina. And then about 3 months before we left, Justin's wheelchair showed up. And it's an aluminum wheelchair that I abandoned all gym time and bike time and just put him in the chair, and we would just do as many miles every day as we could just to condition my body and get used to the communication we would need to navigate various terrain, and then we would add elevation gain, and we still weren't ready.
Yes. And it was my job to eat as much as possible.
You're funny.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so what's amazing is you guys did 500 miles in 35 days. All right, so high 25 miles, but typically on average 17, 18 miles a day. Your career is booming. You're working in the healthcare industry, but you've got to ask for 6 weeks off to go on a pilgrimage. How did that conversation go?
I had an amazing boss. He's still a good friend. But so Ed was my boss at the time. I'm working in healthcare, a pretty high stress environment that requires a lot of just intense work. You got to be dedicated to this job in order to do it well. And I'm asking for 6 weeks off. So we're at a springtime barbecue, and families are around. My coworkers and their husbands and wives and kids. And Ed comes walking up, and we're chatting. And I just turned to him. I said, "Hey, by the way, I need 6 weeks off next summer." And he kind of looks at me like, excuse me? Because what boss gives their employees 6 weeks off in a row, right? But once I explained to him kind of the landscape of this decision Justin, this idea Justin had and this decision we made together, he got really excited. And he told me that, I will do everything in my power to give you the 6 weeks off, as long as you promise me you'll do everything in your power to document this on film. And so I was like, why? And he said, because if you don't, you're selfish and you're irresponsible. There's too much hope not to share it.
Man. So you said yes. I'll document it. I saw in one on that kind of chair that you were pushing, there was a GoPro on top.
Yeah.
How else did you guys capture this journey?
Yeah, so we took a very skeleton documentary crew with us, 2 videographers, our director Terry, and a PA, our production assistant, who was just responsible for all the logistics of camera gear and whatnot. And it was them filming us. They had two conditions. One was they couldn't help us, and the other one is they couldn't let me die. So, like if I was going off a cliff, they couldn't be like,
get that shot, get that shot.
Be a very short film.
I'll drop you.
Yes.
I'll drop you.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so when I think of the El Camino, I think of roads, nicely paved terrain, kind of like this one up here, and just like simple. But the more that I started researching this in prep for the interview, I realized, this is off-road. This is uphill. This is through mountain ranges. This is through weather patterns where it's just pouring rain. You probably couldn't have prepared yourself fully for what you were going to encounter. And I just wanted to ask, like, what was the moment where you just were like, I can't do this? Because I have to assume there had to have been a moment like that.
You know, I would say there was never a moment where I felt I couldn't do it. I knew that as an individual, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're trekking so many miles each day, and then the chair fully loaded with Justin as well as water and, you know, gear is 250 pounds. And so that wears on your body. And we had help initially, you know, from different people, but I mean, we probably had a couple hundred pilgrims step in and just offer their assistance, just out of the blue. You know, we didn't ask for it. It was amazing. But on day 27, we find ourselves completely alone. We're like, there's no one around. We got a late start, so we're in between these waves of pilgrims from traveling from different of the small towns, and we're on a hill that should not be difficult. But 27 days, my body's just like, dude, what are you doing? And so my knees hurt, my back hurts. I have places in my hips that I didn't know I had that just ache. And we're about halfway up a hill that just is kicking my butt. And I can't go any further. And Justin just says, hey, man, let's stop. Let's go down the hill. Let's rest. Take stock of the situation, and we'll figure it out. Because I'm so fatigued that why would you go back down, right? But I'm having trouble actually keeping the chair in one spot. We head back down the hill, and we sit for about an hour in silence, just not really talking about anything. And he turns to me, he says, hey, want to give it one more shot? I'm like, fine, one more. So I strap him behind the chair, we march up the hill, and we get to almost the exact same spot, and I'm getting like 1 and 2 steps at a time before I have to rest. And my body's like, dude, I told you once. What are you doing, right? And I'm not going back down the hill a second time. So now I have my head pressed against the handlebars, and I'm squeezing the brakes as tight as I can. I'm at about a 45-degree angle, so that chair won't inch its way back. I'm like, what do we do? And then we hear footsteps behind us, and a gal comes out of nowhere, Victoria, and she says, can I help? And it's like, it was the moment where, like, okay, I really can't do this. This is a moment where I am not equipped to handle this situation effectively. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And she steps in, she straps in front of the chair, and she hauls us the next 11 miles to the town of Villafranca. It's incredible.
It's amazing because as you read the book and you kind of see this, God kept providing you community when you most needed it. And when you get over that pass, the next day, you've met some other pilgrims who stepped in to help you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so on the pilgrimage, the route that we took, you go over 3 mountain ranges. So we're coming up on our 3rd mountain range, and it's a very, very steep ascent. And we had been told it's even difficult to do on foot rather than push a 250-pound wheelchair up. So anyways, we ended up meeting a couple pilgrims along the way, and they met us at the base of that mountain, and it was just going to be us and them, a couple of them. And by the time we get there, there's a cafe. We grab some quick provisions, and off we go, and the entire cafe gets up, everyone. And I turned to our friends, and I said, so who are these people? And they said, they're here to help you. And we meet everyone, and then off we go start up this mountain, and there were about 12 of us that started. And as we're working our way up this mountain, it was so incredibly steep. I had to be literally carried up this mountain. It took 6 people to carry me. We just could not get my chair up it. It was so steep. And took 6 people to carry me, and the remaining people were carrying backpacks and gear and other things, and then somebody else would come along and pick up the slack, and just one by one, we're working our way up this mountain. And by the time we get towards the top, the mountain police shows up out of nowhere, and some other pilgrims that we had met along the trail helped out, and I think it was a grand total of 17 people.
We've got a picture of it right here.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful. Justin, we're today kind of focusing in on kindness and cultivating this spirit of kindness. Imagine for you kind of having the gift of Pat saying, I'll push you. What is it like to receive kindness?
It's hard. It's a lesson I've been learning since my disease started in my teens. And from the moment, just to give a little bit of perspective even further, from the moment I get up until the moment I go to bed at night, I have to be cared for. I have to be fed. I have to get my help with my clothes put on, brushing teeth, getting help in the bathroom, showering. Everything pretty much of my life, I'm dependent upon others and the kindness of others. My wife steps in 24/7 pretty much. Pat's there, kind of the number two. And, it's a muscle that I've had to learn to flex over time and to allow people in. But one of the biggest lesson that I've learned and was really cemented on that day when we climbed that mountain was when you deny someone the opportunity to help you, you actually deny them joy in life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been so blessed to be a recipient of so much kindness and grace from people. It would take a lot longer than the time we have today to share with you, but I'm so grateful for people stepping in and carrying my load. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And I imagine for you, I imagine for you, Pat, as well, going, I'll push you, but then realizing you were going to need some help too. And along the way, God providing, through his kindness, opportunity to help. What was it like for you, who's trained all this, but to go, I can't make it up this hill. I need help. Mm-hmm. How did you experience and receive that kindness?
It's not something that I've done well historically, as far as just accepting help. I'm a pretty type A driven, I can do it mentality. And that can be so detrimental if you're not careful. And this journey definitely cemented kind of the same lesson, really, in my brain. But I didn't have the history Justin has. We all have things we need help with. There's no question. There's nobody who can exist as an island. It's just show me that person, and I'm going to show you a liar. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. But certain situations, those things we need help with are more visible. But I was in no way able to deal with this from a spiritual or emotional standpoint on my own. Not even from a physical standpoint. So to have people step in, countless individuals, not only to offer help, but to offer help that wasn't asked for. Yeah. Just, they see a need, step in. And we had one day where it's early on, and it's a hill that's not tall, but I'm clearly fatigued. And this little tiny Italian guy, he's like probably $1.5. He's tiny, but he's so strong. He pushes me out of the way, and he pushes Justin up the hill, and he waves goodbye. We have no idea what his name is. Yeah. No clue. Yeah. And off he went. That kind of just embodiment of kindness and love is the very thing that we are called to do.
Yes.
And it's hard, but it's that kind of living. What this cemented for me is that kind of living grounded in love, that when we just pour into others that way, that's how they're going to experience the love of Jesus. Yeah. I experienced the love of Christ through countless strangers stepping in and saying, what can I do? It's incredible.
Wow. Okay, you're at mile 499. You got 1 mile to go. And I imagine Chariots of Fire, the theme song is playing, It's just slow motion, just like feeling it, you know, and you get to the end. Is there like tape that you guys run through? Is there anybody there?
I wish it was that cool.
No, this is cooler.
But this is cooler. So you end at the base of the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela, which is in the northwest corner of Spain. And there's right in the dead center of the square, there's a marker that you end at. And waiting at the end were our wives. We hadn't seen them in like 5 weeks. And they flew over from the States to meet us there. And I tell you what, man, there is nothing like seeing a face that you just love. We both love our wives just so amazingly. We married up and way out of our league for sure.
No question.
No question. Love you guys. Love you, dear. But we were also greeted by many of the pilgrims that had helped us along the way. They were waiting for us when we came in. So I kind of describe it as kind of like maybe what it's going to be like when we die and go to heaven and meet many of the people that have gone before us and just be cheered in and just hugs and be reunited. I mean, you're filled with all sorts of emotions. I mean, we're dead tired, but we're also just ecstatic at the same time to be reunited with our loved ones.
So good. Well, you came out with this book, I'll Push You, in June.
Yep.
And then in November, a documentary is coming out.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that, as well as the website, where people can learn more information.
Well, the documentary is the same story, just they're kind of sister pieces. And
Same title, too.
Yeah, same title, I'll Push You.
Yeah.
That'll be in theaters November 2nd around the country, 550 some odd theaters. One night only. There's a number of theaters in the area that you can go see this film at. So would love to have you guys come out. It's in partnership with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So it's just a great privilege to be able to not only have it be a film that we get to share a story of hope, but to be able to work with an organization that is equipping families, who have children or husbands or wives who are dealing with some of these diseases that can be so devastating, and equip them with the resources they need. So great cause. And you can learn more at illpushyou.com. It's just illpushyou.com. You can find out about the book, the film.
And then in March, you guys are actually putting out a children's book.
Yes.
You wrote something, and then using your illustration graphic skills, and you guys are coming out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wrote the book it's been almost 2 years now.
2 years ago.
And it's just been trying to figure out how to give it life. And then there was no question that I wanted the design process and the art to be done by Justin, so you can tell about that.
Yeah, so when I was in college, when I was able to still do art and do all that, I did a very limited series of watercolors, kind of like Calvin and Hobbes style, like pen and ink with watercolor. And that was one of the conditions when Pat said, we want to do this together, this children's book. And so I said, okay, well, we got to figure that out. And since I can't draw anymore, we collaborated with an illustrator that we found out of Denver. His name's Matt. And he's doing the line art, and then I'm doing the watercoloring. I do it digitally with my voice, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. So, it takes me a while, but our publisher has been fantastic. And in Tyndale, they're actually here in Chicago area. Tyndale, just down the street, not too far. And we're looking forward to that coming out. Comes out right before Easter.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't have a date yet. It's coming right around there. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions. This one comes from Amy Wadka. It says, Justin, knowing someone recently diagnosed with the same disease, what advice would you give them?
You can't do it alone.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard road. But, it's very humbling, but you can't do it alone.
Yeah, it's good.
You got to let people in.
I want to show this picture of you that I ended up just kind of capturing a screenshot of it because I just thought it was so moving. Now looking back and reflecting on the trip, what has God taught you, and how has this 500-mile pilgrimage just transformed you as men, as friends, as husbands, as fathers, and even sons of God? How has this trip done something in you?
That photo actually is a place that's called Cruz de Ferro, it's the Iron Cross. And it's a place that represents, it is a place where pilgrims leave burdens behind. They'll leave a stone or something at the base of the cross, just to demonstrate, okay, I'm letting this go. And there's literally millions of stones that have been left over, since the 9th century. I mean, it's an incredible holy place. And that's a place where I started kind of the process of leaving a burden behind that I've been carrying, where I had told you about my, working in healthcare. My job consumed me. I let it consume me, but it consumed me to the point where I wasn't a father or a husband that I was proud to be. And through that and a series of other events, including Victoria and the 17 people on the climb up of Sombrero, that day where we had so much help, it really kind of, I was drawn to Matthew 25 with the goats and the sheep, where Jesus is teaching in a parable about There's a lot of layers to that section of Scripture. But what strikes me is that when he's talking to the sheep and they're like, God, when do we clothe you? When do we feed you? When do we invite you in? When do we visit you? They're unaware. It's so ingrained in their DNA to love people recklessly and wholly that they don't even realize that that's what they've been doing for their Lord and Savior. And loving God looks like loving others because loving God is loving others.
That's beautiful.
No question. Right?
Amen. Amen.
And changed my perspective as a father, as a husband, as a friend, where everything I do must be motivated by love. Because Jesus chose relationship over religion every single time. Doesn't mean that we don't do the good works, but the motivation behind them has to be love, not a checklist.
Yeah.
And when we are motivated by love, man, beautiful things can happen. And if we're not motivated by love, why are we doing it?
It's good.
Love every time.
It's good. I love it. What about for you, Justin?
Oh man, I mean, I've told you I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. My faith in humanity has been restored. And there are good people in this world doing great things, amazing things. And to have a glimpse of that throughout this pilgrimage. But beyond that, my faith has been continually tested over and over again with everything that we're up to. But our relationship between Patrick and I is so much deeper. I mean, I thought that we were close before we went on this pilgrimage. I mean, we are, exponentially closer now. Pat continues to push me to become a better husband, a better father, just a better friend in all aspects of my life, and I'm doing that for him as well.
You do.
And I've realized that my faith is a journey. It never ends. Mm-hmm. You always continue to seek and to understand and to pray and just lead, like Pat said, just try to lead in love, and that's the best we can do, and show others how God has been kind to us.
That's amazing. Wow. Justin, Patrick, thank you. Willow, can we thank these two?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.